We are at the Peabody Public Library in Columbia City. My name is Janet Skank, and we are here with Howard Marsh, who was born on January 16th, 1926. Mr. Marsh lives at 206 North Madison Street here in Columbia City. He served during World War II in the Army, and his highest rank was a sergeant. Thank you, Mr. Marsh, for coming today. Mr. Marsh, did you join the service? I mean, did you volunteer or were you drafted?
I was drafted.
You were drafted. And where were you living when you were drafted?
Out of Sydney, Indiana.
Sydney, Indiana. Did you have family there?
Yes. My dad owned a farm down there. And
Your dad?
yeah.
Were you married?
Not then, no.
Not then. Okay. And you were drafted from Sydney, Indiana.
Right.
And you were drafted into the Army. How were you notified that you were drafted?
The draft board sent me a letter that said you are selected by your friends and neighbors to serve our country.
When did you have to register for the draft?
Warsaw.
In Warsaw you registered? And how did you do that? You just go there and
Yeah.
you had to go in person to register?
Right.
Okay, and you were drafted. How long from the time you got your notification that you were drafted until you had to leave home?
It was, I was notified in April, and then I got a farm deferment for the summer, and then in September the 9th I was called up.
You had a deferment to actually leave?
Yes.
A farm deferment?
Yes.
Were those common in this area?
Yeah, they were. I don't know of anybody else, but I was deferred, yeah.
And is that what you were doing before you joined the service?
Yeah.
You were a farmer?
Well, I graduated from high school and then stayed the summer on the farm.
Okay.
Helped Dad.
Okay. So once you actually left from home, where did they send you?
Camp Atterbury, Indiana.
Camp Atterbury.
Induction Center.
In the induction center. Can you tell us a little bit what that was like?
That was we were only there 3 or 4 days. Got issued our clothes and they assigned us to different organizations. Some of the fellows were volunteered to be truck drivers, and they turned out to be pushing wheelbarrows.
Did you get to volunteer to do what you want? Did you ask to do a certain
No.
thing?
My older brother was also in the Army, and he told me never volunteer for anything. So I didn't open my mouth. I didn't talk about it.
What did they have you do then?
Well, we just went to Fort McClellan, Alabama from there and trained for combat in the infantry. And then we just went through various stages of training and different things there at Fort McClellan, Alabama.
Okay. About how long did that take?
4 months.
4 months down there?
Yeah, September to January.
September to January. And is it there that they decided what you were going to be in the Army?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What did they decide for you?
They decided that I was going in the Army to serve over France and Germany.
Okay.
And then I got to go over there and just train for combat.
Did you go from there to overseas to France
Yeah.
and Germany? Did you? How'd you get there? How'd they send you?
By Queen Mary.
By the Queen Mary?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, it was a beautiful ship. Big. We never did see the outside of it because it was so big. But we left in January and then went to France and Germany on the Queen Mary.
Okay, and then, what year was that then?
1945.
1945. So were you there for D-Day?
No,
No. Was that before or after?
that was after.
After D-Day. Okay. January 45. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of things, what you were doing when you were there? I know you were fighting, but...
Yeah, well, we just, I'll have to start at the beginning, I guess.
Go ahead.
Okay. We arrived over there and we went to Scotland from the States. And then we went down across Scotland and to England, then we went across the English Channel on an English ship. We saw the White Cliffs of Dover, and then we landed over at Le Havre. We landed out in kind of an ocean, or at the seashore, and we loaded into landing craft, and it took us up to shore. And then we loaded on trains, what they call the 40 and 8, which was a train that was designed to carry 40 horses, or 40 men and 8 horses. And then we got to call that 40 and 8, and then went across France and Germany. And we went to someplace in Germany first. And I was assigned to the 4th Infantry Division at that time. And we stayed there a few weeks, and then they sent us back into France and to train some more, and just we were there for a week in France and stayed with families in their houses. They were nice people.
What was the food like?
We ate Army food.
Oh, you ate Army
And
food.
of course, some of the civilians and kids come around and wanted breakfast from the Army. So after we got done, they would open it up for the kids. And then we stayed there at, I think it was LaSalle or Nancy, Germany, France, for a few weeks, and they had us fire and shoot a lot of ammunition that they had laid back. They wanted to use it all up, so we went and fired our M1 rifles and machine guns. Fired them so much that the Cosmoline run out of them, got them so hot.
Well, do you know what? Why would they have you do that?
Just get rid of the ammunition.
Well, why did they want to get rid of the ammunition?
It was getting old, and
I see.
they needed to get rid of it. They didn't want to let the Germans get a hold of it.
Ah.
And so they just had us fire it and use it up. And then there was some of us that were staying there at Nancy. And one day we went out and started walking around the field and along the creek. And there was a small creek run through the village. And we noticed it was a huge fish. We didn't have any fishing poles or anything, so we went back to the company area and got a hand grenade and threw it into the water where the fish was. We never did see the fish again. But then we went to Luxembourg from there, and we stayed there a while, and I remember that was on Easter. I remember that very well. I can remember Easter, and they kept us there for a while, and we just assigned us to squads in different places like that. I remember the Easter service that they had. The people came to the church. We stood off the sidelines just watching them. And they came to the church. One of them was riding a donkey, and then they had palm leaves laid down, and it was very impressive service. And then they told us that they wanted us to go to attend a church service. So the chaplain took us out in the field. I remember he had a portable organ. We sang songs and worshiped, and he just wanted us to be ready to go into combat. And from there we started towards the front lines, and they kept us there for a while, and then we had to go into villages. We learned how many fellows could get in a one-man foxhole, because they bombed and strafed us, and it was really scary. But we stayed there for a while, and then I remember we started moving across Germany, and the fellow, the officer in charge of us, moved our outfit ahead of the rest of the there was 4 companies moving through the woods. And he moved us, company C, out ahead of the rest of them. And that night there was a bunch of Germans came in on our foxhole. We had foxholes dug and then logs laid across the top of it and got underneath those. And the Germans surrounded our foxhole, and the next morning, that happened about midnight. The next morning there was 6 dead Germans laying around our foxhole. One of the fellows, he was from Chicago Heights. He was on guard and he was shooting like mad. I remember helping one fellow that was wounded, but our company commander was also shot that night, shot in the head. And he had just returned to the company from being in a hospital. He was shot in the head, and they never were sure who done it. Nobody liked him. He might have been shot by his own men, we don't know for sure. But anyway, then from there we started moving up through the woods and just walking around and taking prisoners, and we were walking through the woods, and I remember coming to to get my throat cleared up. Then I remember coming to a huge farm where they had hogs and cattle, and it was just like being back home on the farm. We talked to the people that run the farm, and they were very, very, very nice. And
did they speak English?
Yeah, some of them did.
Some of them spoke English?
Yeah. And then we kind of interviewed him and wrote some of it down. I didn't have too much written down about that, but we just stayed there a while, and then we...
This is in Germany then?
In Germany,
yeah.
And then we just moved kind of on through Germany and taking prisoners and clearing out the Germans and just going up through the woods and like I said, cleaning up the mess. And so then we spent several days on that. We were walking most of the time. Once in a while we'd get a ride on a tank or something like half track or truck, and I remember going up to one of the fellows that was on a tank, and they had where they could carry a lot of food with them, and we went up to him and asked him if he had any food. Yeah, I got some cans of peaches. He said, I'll give anything I got to you dog soldiers. He called us dog soldiers. He said, I'll give anything that I got to give to you guys. So
I'm sorry, who said this now?
One of the fellows on the tank.
Oh, one of the fellows on the tank, okay.
Yeah.
And they called you dog soldiers?
Yeah, foot soldiers and dog
okay.
soldiers, yeah. And they just treated us like we were heroes or anything, but they were real nice to us. And so then we went just fighting and gathering prisoners, and we went to, and one day we were going down through the woods. This was getting very close to the end of the war. And there was we stopped in a town, at the edge of town. There was two armored outfits sitting there. And he had an artillery observer in a small plane flying back and forth. And he called down there and said, hey, your tanks and your armored cars are shooting at each other across the woods. So he had to go down and get that stopped. And I remember that we walked past artillery or anti-aircraft artillery. And this one guy took one shot at an airplane and he hit it with anti-aircraft. Knocked it out of the sky. You just see it coming down, and he really got that one. And the war ended shortly after that. That was about the time that the Luftwaffe surrendered. And And then from that on, it was just 2 more.
And where were you? Do you know where you were in Germany when the war actually ended?
No, I don't remember the name of the town. But it was,
But you weren't near Berlin or anything like that?
yeah. We went to Bamberg, Germany. They had a prison camp there, and we stayed there a while and took up gathered prisoners. And one time we went down by the Alps, southern Germany, and got a truckload of prisoners. And there was one guard on the truck, and I was a guard on the truck. I had to sit out on the top of the spare tire on top of the cab because one of the fellows wanted to ride along with the driver, and he was in the truck. I was supposed to be in the truck, but he wouldn't let me sit there. Anyway, one of the prisoners, about midnight, he poked me and said, "Hey, you're going to fall off there. Better let me hold your rifle." And that woke me up. I wanted to let him have my rifle. And so then we stayed there at Bamberg for a while. And, I remember going through a town called Cradlesheim, taking it from the Germans. They opened up fire on us, and the officer said that they better surrender or we're just going to blow the town off the map. And he had one guy there that didn't want to surrender. He shot one of the officers, and so one of the medics crawled out and got him and brought him back to the lines. And we set up our mortars. I was in the small mortars. We set up the mortars in the gardens, and every hour we'd change people on the mortars. And I was assigned to the mortar at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I went out and we were dropping shells in that mortar. And one exploded right over our heads and hit a telephone line right over our heads. So I went in and told the sergeant about it. And he said, "Well, just knock it off till daylight." He didn't want us shooting anybody. But anyway, and we got ready to come back to the States when that would have been in May. Yeah, May, March, April, and May, yeah. They told us that we would be going back to the States to train for the invasion of Japan. So we went back into France again and stayed in one of those camps that they call Lucky Strike or Old Gold or Camel. Yeah.
Why is that? I've never...
It was Le Havre.
Okay.
And we stayed there some of the time, and it was cold, real cold. I know there was a bunch of us got together and pulled our bunks together and shared our blankets. And then on July 1st, I think it was, we got on a ship to come back, and we got on the General Parker. And there was some of us that couldn't sleep there. They would hold 1,000 people. Well, they only had room for about 900, so some of us had to volunteer to lay out in life rafts out in the open air. And I never did get seasick because I was out in the open air. But you go down in the hold, boy, it was a mess. And so we came back to the States then. We got into a rough storm in the North Atlantic. And the fellows were just hanging over the railing and just getting rid of everything they had in their stomach. But I had to serve KP about 4 times because nobody was swelling up. And I remember the sergeant waking me up one morning, and he said, "Marsh, you're on KP today." I said, "Yeah, but I was on KP yesterday." "Doesn't make any difference. You're the first one I found awake." So I got to eat real good. they just had to serve several times on KP because
When you were on KP, what kind of things did you do?
you had to serve the tables and take care of the tables and serve the food. We had good food because we were all going back from combat. But I had a lot of food that I could eat because nobody else could eat. But it was nice. We got back to New York. I remember going past the Statue of Liberty. And it was nice. So many of us crowded over to one side to see the Statue of Liberty. They told some of us, "You got to move back, you're going to upset the ship." I doubt if it would have, but anyway, it was a small ship. It wasn't like the Queen Mary. So then we landed in New York again and went to, let me see, where was it? I can't remember. Camp Kilmer. And shipped out from there and came home, and I spent 40 days or 30 days at home.
Was that the first time you were home since you had enlisted or were drafted?
Yeah, well, I got home once before that, but only for a week. But anyway, they said that the war with Japan ended while we were at home, which we were very thankful for. And I was home for 30 days, and then went back to Camp Butler, North Carolina. And I had met a girl in Washington, D.C. Glad my wife isn't here to hear this, but she'll see it. Anyway, I made several trips to Washington, D.C. I volunteered for schooling up there. We went to a demolition school and a different kind of school like that. I volunteered to go up there so I could be up there with her.
This was while you were in North Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she gave me a tour of Washington, D.C., and we had a good time together. And then I tried to get home for Christmas, but they wouldn't let me go because I was slated to move out to get enough points for my discharge. But before I got that, they sent me to El Paso, Texas, Fort Bliss. And that's about the time that I received my sergeant's stripes. And I went back to El Paso. Was there about 6 weeks, and they said that some of you guys that have been overseas, you got some furlough time coming. So I got a 3 weeks furlough and went home. And his dad was sick, but he couldn't do his farming in the spring, so I got to stay home for a week or for a month to help him with the farming. And then I went back to the El Paso, Texas for about a month. And in the meantime, Dad and Mom went to the Red Cross and they got me an emergency discharge. So I got out about 2 months early. But that weekend, all the railroads were on strike. And then the only way we could get home, the railroads were on strike, the only way we could get home was to hire somebody to take us. There was 4 of us got together, and there was people coming through from the West Coast, one guy in a car, and he'd stop at different places and pick up passengers. So there was 4 of us got in one car and headed toward the East Coast. 3 of them got off in Oklahoma City, and then the driver and I went on to St. Louis. And that was as far as I could go with him, so I got a bus on home. And my kid brother was also, there were 3 of us boys in the Army at the same time. And my kid brother was he was there by St. Louis. and I got to talk to him. I didn't go out to see him. I should have. I probably kicked myself that I didn't go. But then I got on home, and I farmed after that for a couple of years. And then I got married. So that's about it.
You said you were 3 boys, and all 3 served in the Army?
Yeah.
Did all 3 get to come home?
Yeah, all 3. One, my oldest brother, he went in 1941, and he stayed in for 4 years. And then he come home and got married, and then he was killed in an automobile accident down by Hartford City. But then my kid brother, he went in after the war ended, and he was sent to Japan for guard duty and stuff like that. So there was 3 of us boys in the service at the same time. Yeah, my dad had been in the service in World War I, and he was really proud of us. We got to serve.
While you were over in Europe, it wasn't all work, was it? I mean, did you ever have any fun?
No.
Never had any fun over in Europe?
No.
Didn't get to eat any of the good food, or?
Well, yeah, we got a lot of good food from the French people. Of course, we didn't.
You didn't get any kind of furlough or time off or leaves or anything while you were in Europe? Wow.
And some days we just didn't do anything, just wandered around. And there was some of the people that, well, I remember one family that had baked a bunch of bread, this dark German bread, and they gave us some of that to eat. And then they took us in, and we stayed with one of the families for a while, and it was interesting. But they were all very friendly. We'd go up to them and say, "Have a cigar," which means, "Do you have any eggs?" We'd get fresh eggs that way.
You get fresh eggs?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was nice.
After you were discharged and you were able to get home, were you able to take advantage of any of the benefits that were offered to veterans?
No, I applied over at the Veterans Hospital, but I had retired from GE, and they had a good pension or good prescription plan, and I didn't need that.
But you didn't use any of the education benefits or
No.
or the housing or anything like that?
No.
Never got into anything like that?
Yeah.
When you were in the service, how'd you keep in touch with your family?
Letters.
Letters?
Yeah.
And you said you were, and from the time that you went into the service and the time you left, you had the 130-day leave, and you had one other shorter leave?
Yeah.
Because you were able to get home?
Yeah.
Was that before or after they sent you to Europe?
That was before.
Before you sent you to Europe?
Yeah.
Well, we're about to end here, sir. But I wanted, if you had anything else to bring up or talk about, that wanted to give you that opportunity.
No, there's probably some of the stuff that I forgot to bring up. So.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Well then, Mr. Marsh, we really appreciate you taking your time and telling us about this. We thank you for your time today and for your service. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.